It all started with a name whispered on a 1982 cassette tape, found by chance in a batch of uncatalogued files down in the university basement. The voice on the tape was faint, like it was speaking underwater, but one word came through with disturbing clarity: Hallward. It sounded like a prayer, just not one you'd ever hear in church. Less than a week later, Evelyn Marr, a researcher of religious folklore, was driving down winding roads toward the Appalachian Mountains in eastern Tennessee. She was headed to a small village called Ashcroft. Barely 300 people, tucked away in thick forests and valleys time seemed to have forgotten. What caught her attention besides the recording was a note scribbled on the back of the tape. Praying to Hallward since before the town was founded. He protects, he collects. Ashcroft wasn't on any official state records. There were no traditional churches, no internet, just a shut-down post office and a tiny grocery store. Most houses were built from dark wood, a few of them marked with strange carvings on the doors, an upside-down eye, a spiral, and the most unsettling of all, something that looked like a face with no features. Evelyn booked a room at a modest inn run by a soft-spoken old woman named Ruth. At breakfast on the first morning, she casually asked about local beliefs. Ruth stopped stirring the sugar into her tea. "Oh, honey, folks around here have their own way of talking to God." Evelyn smiled, trying to push the conversation a bit further. "God, or Hallward." The spoon slipped from Ruth's fingers. A tense silence filled the kitchen. "You ought to be careful with that name," Ruth said, her voice lower now. "Not everyone here likes hearing certain words." Over the next few days, Evelyn explored the village, trying to figure out why Hallward was treated like a saint, even though there were no official images of him. No portraits, just primitive symbols carved into trees, stones, and door frames. Most residents dodged her questions or pretended not to understand. One of the only exceptions was a little boy playing alone near the cemetery. "You hear him at night too?" the boy asked without looking up. "Who?" Evelyn asked. "Hallward. He walks in the woods. He knows people's names." Evelyn began writing everything down, convinced now that this village was practicing an ancient form of worship, maybe older than Christianity itself. All signs pointed to Hallward being some kind of local entity, hidden under the mask of sainthood. But she still had no idea what it really meant to be protected by him. On the third night, Evelyn was jolted awake by a deep, muffled sound coming from the woods behind the inn. It was like chanting, or maybe weeping. She got up, grabbed her recorder, and stepped outside quietly, guided only by the moonlight and the unsettling sound that seemed to come from every direction at once. The Ashcroft forest felt wrong. No insects, no owls, not even the rustling of leaves. Just that ritualistic hum, echoing at regular intervals, like it was coming from underground. Evelyn followed the sound to a clearing, and what she saw made her freeze in place. A group of villagers, all dressed in white, were kneeling in a circle. At the center stood a hooded figure, speaking in a language Evelyn couldn't recognize. In front of him there was a makeshift altar, and on it, a chunk of raw flesh surrounded by black candles. When Evelyn accidentally stepped on a dry twig, the snap was loud enough that 3 people turned their heads toward her. But none of them reacted. They just went right back into their trance as if nothing had happened. The next morning, Evelyn tried to confront Ruth. "I saw a ritual, people from the village calling on something." Ruth just shook her head. "You saw what you wanted to see." Evelyn pushed. "What is Hallward?" Ruth looked at her, eyes heavy with something that felt older than exhaustion. "Hallward's not a god, not a demon either. He's what shows up when prayers go on too long, with too much feeling, for too many years. He first appeared when our water ran dry, long before we had maps." Evelyn recorded every word. But before she could ask anything else, Ruth added, "Hallward protects us, but only if we believe, and only if we feed him." That same day, Evelyn stopped by the old general store, where she found an elderly man sitting in the shade of the porch. When she mentioned the name Hallward, he didn't deny anything. Quite the opposite. "You really want to know what he is?" the old man said. "Then go up to the old church on the hill, the one no one talks about. There's a book in there no one reads anymore. Evelyn climbed the hill. The church was nothing but ruins now. No altar, no pews, just a crumbling circular structure of stone and a rotting wooden pulpit. Under a set of broken floorboards, she found the book. It had no title, no author. The pages were stained with something dark, not quite ink. The texts were fragmented, full of symbols and words in Latin, Old English, and something else, a language that seemed to vibrate in her eyes as she read it. She copied what she could and returned to the inn, her stomach tight with dread and a growing sense that she was in too deep. But she still didn't know. Hallward knew her name. That night, Evelyn couldn't sleep. The feeling of being watched wasn't just in her head. It felt physical. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the same symbol carved into the village doors, the faceless face. No eyes, no mouth, no nose. Just absence. She decided to read aloud a passage from the manuscript she had copied from the church book, even though she had no clue what it meant. That's when she heard the click. The window creaked open by itself. Cold wind rushed into the room carrying the sweet smell of wet earth and raw flesh. The lights went out. Everything went still. Too still. With just a flashlight in hand, Evelyn crept to the end of the inn's hallway. She called out for Ruth, but there was no answer. She made her way downstairs, and as soon as her feet touched the lobby floor, she felt the cold seep up through her skin. The front door was wide open. Outside, the whole village was out of their houses, lined up, silent, walking toward the woods, holding unlit candles and whispering words she couldn't make out. She followed, staying just out of sight between the trees. And there, in the clearing, she saw something that defied logic. The villagers were kneeling again. But this time in the center, where the altar had been, there was a hole. Deep. Alive. A hole that pulsed like it was breathing. And from it, something was rising. It had no clear shape. It was a presence, a distortion in the air, an absence that bent the light around it, and Evelyn could feel it. It was looking straight at her, even without eyes. She didn't scream, didn't run. She just dropped to her knees. Her name was spoken in dozens of hushed voices, and for the first time, she understood the language. It was the language of hunger, of absence, of debt. By morning, Evelyn was gone, but her backpack was found on the pulpit of the ruined church, along with a fresh new page in the forgotten book, a handwritten prayer, no date, no signature, but marked with the symbol of the faceless face. Would you dare visit a village that doesn't appear on any map? And if you found out everyone there prays to something that isn't God, what would you do? If you've made it this far, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications.